It's America's man's man. And I went back to Boston and my city was gone. They ripped the baby from not only the manger but the womb, and they took the frogs from the pond. It's my localized riff of the famous Pretenders song, This is America's Man's Man. So, it's communism versus conservatism. And don't you know, the conservative story is a remarkably consistent one. You will inevitably run into a brick wall if you're considering joining Team Communist, the team that hates America and hates you, and wants to, again, still no peep from the fake news on the Russian gulags that the Bernie Sanders campaign wants to put you to work in. This is what the communist left means by free education for everybody. Elizabeth Warren, all of them. This is what they mean. And I did an episode called Something Evil in the Hub. Check it out if you want to know where Pocahontas is coming from. But the choice for future generations is clear as day. It's always been this choice. Although the fake news media has come up with a million different words for it. And when they run out of one term, when they have driven one term into the ground, and people they come up with an endless stream of euphemisms to describe their debauchery and ultimately death. Join the AIDS lifestyle. Oh, no. Let's call it. We'll call it homosexual as a neutral term, right? So it's for men who insert their peniliuses into the anuses of another member of the masculine persuasion. And by the way, it's not a persuasion. It's a DNA mandate, if you will. It is, and those are the laws of the universe. And if you want to try to defy the laws of physics, then have fun with that for the rest of your life. But no matter how many times the fake news says that you're right, or that reality is not true, it's still reality, and so you will inevitably hit that brick wall. And I'm attempting to help you to avoid splatting into a bloody mess on that brick wall, like an abortion. The communists want to abort you. Doesn't matter how old you are. As a matter of fact, if you're old enough, if you're past 65, they'd like to abort you, just like they want to abort the not only the preborn, but those who have just been born. It's tender lives, just reaching out for their mother, and then a suction cup rips off its arm in the womb, or maybe they're out of the womb and little tiny hands, like yay big, as big as one of my beard whiskers, and what does the left want to do? Well, the left wants to insert a I believe it's the same technique. They insert the suction cup into the suction, kind of like when you go to the dentist, and they suck out all the, it clears out all the water so the dentist can work on your teeth. Except in the abortion mill, like the one that's smack dab in the middle of the unexceptional Boston University on Commonwealth Ave in Boston. What they do is they, as your baby is coming out of the womb, and now what they really want to do, especially in California, it doesn't matter, what they're. I mean, they really want to kill black babies. In fact, that was Margaret Sanger, of course, said that explicitly. Said, we don't want the word to get out that what we're really trying to do is exterminate the Negro people. I I would like to keep them around personally. I mean, but that's my opinion. It's my opinion. So what they do is they insert the suction cup, like the straw, just like at the dentist, but maybe with a sharp edge. I believe they may actually make an incision. I don't do this, and I think it's rather grim. So actually, I don't know but I know there's a suction cup involved. It goes into the base of the neck, and they suck out the brains. That's how it works. Now, I'm not sure if they just decapitate you if you've already been born, because at that point, you're out of the womb, and there's really no limit once you disrespect the sanctity of life, how far you will go. And the Democrats, let's call them what they are. They're the communists, okay? Can we call them what they are, please? The atheistic communists who have no mercy because they don't believe in God, the God of America, Jesus Christ, the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, Jesus Christ. They are selling baby parts, and they are using their activist judges to attempt to stop footage of the undercover interviews that Project Veritas has done. Never mind that the fake news has been conducting 1 million pro-communist undercover interviews for the last century, diluting the American imagination and pool of intelligence with nasty pornographic filth from the infotainment establishment. California, here we come, right back where we started from. Anyway, you'll discover over time. That's enough about abortion. I don't want to. I know it's gross, and I've reached my tolerance. But the left, this is their thing, is that you have to first of all, you have to be tolerant. This is leftist communist logic. You have to be tolerant, and you have to allow a woman to make the decision. You have to allow women to commit murder. Baby's out of the body. It's murder. It's an innocent child. The child has not started a Holocaust or something silly like that. That'd be... Anyway, it's a rather comic image, but the point is very serious. So I know, it's just, it makes me... I don't like... But... Again, the fake news, this is what they do. They get you, ha-ha, communism. Ha-ha, communism, what are you, McCarthy? Is this the Red Scare again? I mean, they're the ones who blacklisted me from the fake news because I dared to tell the truth like Buck Williams. Oh! I'll tell you about Buck Williams later. That's another story. Anyway... Buck Williams of GNN, Global News Network. Talk about demonizing the Russians. Anyway, so Bernie Sanders wants to put you in a gulag, but all of this is part of the vast lie that the fake news is trying to get you to believe. And they always hide behind this pretense of, well, we have to be objective. We have to get God's side and Satan's side. We want to hear from the crazy axe murderers out there. We want to get their opinion. We've got to publish the Unabomber Manifesto because, we want to hear everybody's side of the story. This is the terrorist fake news, again, subtly promoting terrorism, subtly partnering with the terrorists until really any logical American who has not been drowned in fake news propaganda can only conclude that the fake news media is domestic terrorist. Number one, that they are partnering with the terrorists because this is the only way that they can continue to extort advertising dollars from you by, let's see what the, we want to hear Satan's side of the story. And that's what courts are for. We do not have any provision in our Constitution. Yes, there's a right to free speech. I guess you might say a free press, but there's such a level of manipulation, and I don't know. Maybe this is it. Maybe this is the way it's supposed to be. Maybe the founders, not having anticipated the advent of the fake news infotainment, never-ending propaganda from the anti-American terrorist, domestic terrorist communist machine. I don't know. Maybe we could prove that the fake news are in fact partnering with terrorists to incite rebellion, as the Bernie Sanders campaign, yet uninvestigated to my knowledge. Perhaps the authorities are investigating the Bernie Sanders campaign and their threat to, it wasn't a threat, it was a secret plan recorded by Project Veritas, the undercover journalists at Project Veritas. And the methodology is sneaky on the part of Project Veritas. I don't believe in undercover journalism. I don't think it's a good, on the one hand, I can almost, if the judges weren't so corrupt that are saying, no, you have to cover all this stuff up, Project Veritas would not have to conduct this kind of, sneaky fake news style journalism, if because I don't believe in. I think fake news is an anti-American. They're terrorists in general. Project Veritas has revealed some very valuable things, like the Bernie Sanders plot to burn down America if Bernie Sanders doesn't win. I think that's been made quite clear even by the Project Veritas teaser video, which they recorded of the Bernie Sanders field organizer saying, Milwaukee will burn, and if Bernie Sanders, the communist president, the overtly communist candidate among many communist candidates, which is all the Democrats and some of the Republicans, but Bernie Sanders, overtly communist, he calls it socialism, but get real. Who are you kidding, right? Seriously. If Bernie Sanders is not elected president. So this is, and he, furthermore, talking about putting you in a concentration camp where you will lift stones because you, an American, have the audacity to think that you are entitled to any of the fruits of your labor. So Bernie Sanders' campaign and all of the communists, the Communist Party, which is the Democratic Party, when they say education for all, they really mean slavery. They really mean slavery for all. They want all of us. They want all of us to work for nothing on Bernie Sanders' plantation. And by the way, when Elizabeth Warren, when Pocahontas talks about, we're going to give away free education, meaning free indoctrination at the local academic hack place. There are exceptions though. So you do have your Franciscan universities, your Liberty University, wonderful, wonderful place, and this presumably would have to be included because of our fine constitutional lawyers like Jay Sekulow and Jordan Sekulow and the whole to the Liberty Council, all that. They would make sure that at least everybody has equal access to this universal communist education, and then eventually they would keep selling their communist fake news until they would figure out some legal maneuver to whine like Nancy Pelosi is doing now, and then the fake news would promote the whining as something truthful, further confuse the Americans, and this is how communism takes over an otherwise free country. Of course, America's men will never let that happen, but this is their ploy. But the conservative story is the most consistent and makes the most sense. And when you really get to analyze communism, which is evil, atheistic communism, which is evil, and I am not going into theology here, so if you're an atheist, we'll just call it communism for now, which is essentially the worship of the state. So it's not really the lack of a religion, it's really complete and total allegiance to the state, which America, a democratic republic or a republic, again, we don't, as the good President Trump has reiterated in the grand American tradition, God is what separates us from becoming like the French Revolution. Okay, the French Revolution said, "Gee, America's got a good thing there going on there. Let's try to do the same thing. Only, well, we're smart. We're drinking a lot of wine over here. You know, we don't need no imaginary dictator in the sky. We'll just get rid of that little fairy tale God thing." And that, my friends, is how heads began to roll in France. Ironically, the Dems, the communist Dems, accusing President Trump now of, I don't know, they said something about, or people, if President Trump isn't reelected, they're gonna, I don't know, it's something, he's a dictator. He's a dictator. No, listen. We're not, Americans are not the ones who feel some strange compulsion to threaten to burn down America if our candidate doesn't win. And again, the media completely silent on this. I don't know why. But anyway, I guess what I was kind of getting to, and I wrote at length about why Fox News has dominated the fake news cable networks, and that is simply because the fake news got so out of control with their lies that, it's almost like, Fox News just kind of strolls in with Roger Ailes and his team of hunks and hotties, whom he vetted by just turning off the sound. It's kind of how I vet women that I want to date. You have to pass the looks test first, and this is really how all men do think. If you haven't been brainwashed by the fake news, you can't. It's what's meant by like love at first sight. I've never dated anyone who is not attractive. Who's not, kind of, it's not a 10. But that's the thing, is that you get to know some of these, and that's kind of like just it's the minimum. That's like the bare minimum, right? It's the bare minimum. And then, some of them, they you turn the sound on, and complete malarkey's coming out. Now, granted, there's, again, millennials are a very unintelligent generation, and millennials, we are an unintelligent generation because we haven't been educated, where our government schools once taught values by way of the English language, placed a premium on English, on grammar. We now indoctrinate. We do not teach critical thinking. We do not teach we do not teach people in our government, again, because these are all unionized teachers. Unions are a communist force sown by foreign nationals. And these, by the way, they also control the industry which produces your fake news. They're communist unions. And if you don't join the union, then you do not work in the fake news. It's why yours truly naively failed at once upon a time in my mission to be that that truth teller, that voice of truth in the fake news, because the systems are there to take you out if that is if you are attempting to truly get to even both sides of the story these days, or all of the sides of a story in any kind of intelligent way. There are systems in place to ensure that the fake news always entertains the side of terrorists, the side of chaos and corruption, because the fake news cannot survive in a successful America. If Americans are getting the true knowledge that we need from from educated older mentors and thriving in communities where we know our neighbors, and we feel at liberty to leave our doors unlocked at night, even in the cities, as we once did in our city neighborhoods, and of course far beyond. And there are still some communities in rural America. As a matter of fact, there are a lot of them where many of these good people still exist. We're talking about Ohio, and not northern Ohio, by the way, but the rural. Maybe I take it back. There are parts of even of northern Ohio where this is still, there are good people. But we're coming to you from the seat of Satan, once the holiest of holy places in the world, the city on a hill, literally the city on a hill, with a literal light guiding the entire world here in the hub of the universe, Beacon Hill, and warning people of danger. Now those same, our modern lights, if you will, our modern radio towers where the beacon once stood, not warning the Americans and the world of danger, but rather promoting it and poisoning the world, misusing our resources, taking the wonderful blessings that God has endowed us with and poisoning the world with communist propaganda. And I do believe it's a sickness. I do believe it's a sickness, like the mental sickness of homosexuality, of sodomy. That and this is. But you find over time, when you really get down to it, and you have an informed perspective, that the left, the communist story, falls apart. If you attempt to follow the religion of the left, and that's all it is it's another religion. All of you people who think you know better than some fictional dictator in the sky, God. I think that's what George Carlin used to call God. What a strange and disturbed man George Carlin was. I felt so awful for him. I tried to understand his. He was an unhinged dude, but he epitomizes the entire fake news ethic, and he helps you understand where the Dems are coming from. And of course, there were a few good points, like any fake news comic. That's what they are, I guess. They're people who either want to be great communist leaders or comedians, but they somehow fall short, so they become broadcast news anchors, or they learn to code and they go to work for Google. Again, James Damore listened to his conscience, his heart, worked for Google, and he spoke the truth, like Buck Williams at GNN. And he was shown the door rather hastily. So you have a couple religions on the communist side. You have the religion of environmentalism, and by the way, I'm somewhat sympathetic to the cause of conservatism. I don't think it's necessarily a good idea to burn down the rainforest capriciously. I'm just anyway. But seriously, if you really study it, if you really understand it, and if you don't get your education from communist government school teachers or, public schools as you may know them. And by the way, do you ever notice, there was one comic bit, I don't know who said it, but I thought it was wonderful, about how anytime you put the word public in front of something, it immediately turns to shit. Sorry about the language, pastors. And others. I don't like. I'm trying to cut back now because it's a nasty habit. It really is. It's like smoking, smoking weed, or putting your penis in another man's. It's a bad habit. You just shouldn't do it. Anyway. So like a public pool, for instance. Or maybe a swimming pool run by a charity that accepts a lot of public money. Inevitably, poop ends up in the pool. It just happens. You take your money from the federal government, and I've addressed that whole phenomenon in another video about how the overtaxation, which is inevitably taxation without representation, separates the person who is paying the taxes from the actual work that this taxpayer money is being spent upon. So you have no idea where the heck your federal taxes are going. You have no idea. You don't know where, and that's why the federal government should be kept at a minimum. And that's why Christians, who are the smartest people who exist in America, because, faith, the beginning of fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, is how Proverbs puts it. That's why Christians are inevitably the most real Christians always end up in bed with the libertarians, so to speak. And you cannot have. We've never had a Republican. We've never had. Republicans are awful these days. Republicans are borderline communists. So I want to say we've never had a conservative. We've never had a real. We've never had a good president who's not a communist. We've never had a real good president, an intelligent president who was not elected on the basis of two factors. You got to have two contingencies to be elected president and to be a good president. I'm not talking about a fake news propagated gigolo like Bill Clinton. I'm talking about women voters. I'm talking about. I know what you're thinking, and I don't care. Maybe like that guy who spoke at the Hollywood something or other. You need to have two groups of people. You need to your morality, your character, and your policies. Because there's no separation. Conservatives, we don't see a separation between the candidate as a person and the candidate as a public official. Because you cannot act in such a way. You can pretend to act and to serve in your public position for a time. You might be able to get away with acting in your official role as something other than who you are as a person and what you really believe. You can make concessions to the other side, but at the end of the day, you can only do that for so long, because we human beings are a finite energy. Just like, for instance, if you're one of the many miseducated, brainwashed children who are being taught that they can change their sex, they can, that they, even though their DNA and everything about them says that they're born. I did a whole video on this. It's called How Birth Control Destroys Women on americasmansman.com. For a time, you can play the man, you can play the pants role, but we as human beings have finite resources. Christians, of course, believe that it is our, it's the parable of the talents. Are you investing your life talents wisely? and you can pretend to be someone else that you're not for only so long before the truth starts catching up with you, because not even because of your conscience. It's like Mark Twain says, writes. We're going to say writes to make it fake newsy, even though it's not the true tense, because you've been brainwashed by the fake news. So we're going to use the present tense, even though Mark Twain he's been up there or down there for a very long time. I don't judge Mark Twain. God judges Mark Twain. So, you can only, it takes a lot less energy. It's a lot easier to tell the truth all the time, because you don't have to remember. Oh, I lied. I told this lie to this person. I'm going to keep these two lies straight. So now I got to come up with a new lie that kind of fits both of those lies, but doesn't violate the. Then it just becomes a mess. Like the hoax impeachment trial right now, and by the way, this is why Bill Clinton was a lousy president. One of the reasons Bill Clinton was a lousy president, and that there's no the fake news is sought to, in their mission to impose communism, they've sought to erect an imaginary wall between Bill Clinton the person and Bill Clinton the president. Really to appeal to that tendency of I would say of women voters to act more emotionally, but again, I give women voters, regardless of whether women voters have helped or hurt women voting have helped or hurt the republic, I give them more credit than that. It's not that simple, because there's a role of emotionalism. It's part of the human experience, and so there's not. I don't want to completely discredit female voters, especially. I mean, a lot of them have voted for Trump, but I guess I'd say on the whole that it's probably hurt America more than anything else, because their own voting decisions largely have made them miserable. We wouldn't have legalized abortion or murdering of your own children, which is something that I'm still convinced that no woman in her right mind would actually want to do, but the fake news, the pimps of the world, and the pimps, close allies at Planned Murderhood, have convinced women that murdering their own children is a good thing. And I do think if you tell a woman that, it's just like if you sit someone down in a room, in an interrogation room, and you suggest the same thing over to them, you deprive them of sleep, and by the way, a pregnant woman has all these drains on their they have physical drains on their kind of emotional and physical reserves as it is. I think if Planned Parenthood, I think really what we have in legalized abortion is a case of women simply being worn down by evil men who have convinced them that they're going to be happier, and that they're going to be happier and are not going to be psychologically maimed for a lifetime if they murder their own child. But I don't think any woman really desires. I don't believe that a healthy woman who is being cared for by a good man would ever in her right mind have any desire to. I mean, women love children. Women, this is their strength. They don't mind that, changing the diaper, all the things that sometimes, we kind of get. We don't necessarily. They love it. They're just magnetized to it's their caring, nurturing instinct, and there's it completely defies a woman's character to desire to kill a baby in the womb, absent communist propaganda. But again, we live in an age where, like that old hypnotist that used to convince people that they're really chickens, and so and you can still find this, in stage hypnotists in Las Vegas. They literally they convince miseducated or highly fake news drugged non-thinkers low information television watchers who get their education from the television that convince them that they're a chicken, or that they're Britney Spears at a Britney Spears concert or something. I've seen it, and people get up and they are completely they're hypnotized, and that's really at the heart of what I believe fake news psychosis is. That's the only reason that America could come to the conclusion that communism is somehow more liberating, given all the evil, all the murder, all the terror that communism has wrought on the world. I wouldn't wish communism on anybody, and I feel sorry for the nations which continue to endure it. There's a case of a communist leader. It happened right here in the United States. It's called Synanon, and I'm not going to recount it because my late friend Chuck Colson did such a great job of talking about it in his book, How Now Shall We Live? And but it was basically, it quickly became a cult, and eventually it just doesn't. All communism really is that. It's top-down mind control, leadership, and everybody loses for a number of reasons. But it's not freedom, and this is why all of the Democratic, all of the American leftists, all of their arguments eventually they just don't add up. They don't add up. All their free education is really free concentration camps, is what it is. And I was starting to say before, even Pocahontas. Even if let's say that in some kind of world where Pocahontas is not an evil, manipulative liar, which she is. Let's say she really just wants to send you to a college of your choice, as if that were really true. Is it really free? Well, no, because you are, it's kind of like when you want to send your children to, you want to either homeschool your children or you want to send them to a private school where they're not going to be subject to the unionized teachers' indoctrination. You still have to pay taxes, and so you're still paying for the neighbors' children to go to go get their indoctrination. It's not an education, because remember, these people are telling them what to think. They're not teaching them how to think critically. And I experienced it in the Linfield public school system. It's indoctrination. It's evil. It's evil, is what it is, and that's one of the reasons I feel the responsibility to educate you. I mean, the left calls what they do re-education, but it's really anything but. It's miseducation. It's fear-mongering, and it's not education at all. It's something else. Does America need to be re-educated? Absolutely. That's why I do what I do. But what the left does is not re-education. It's like when I went to Brookstone to work for the first time, and I recounted in the video that I did for the great organization Mass Resistance, led by a Jewish guy. But this is Massachusetts. This is the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So. You got to take everything here. We count our blessings. We fall asleep counting our blessings. Wonderful, wonderful song, by the way. I wish I could hear that one a little bit more at Christmas time, and they seem to drop that. It's all anyway. Anyway. So this is an attempt to you came here of your own free will because you recognize the profound truth in the things that I say, and the wisdom I'm imparting to you in this brief time that we have here on this earth. That this wonderful, noble, God-ordained venture called America may bless the world for many years to come, making humanity brighter and happier. And that's why America's men are faithful to God and country. To God and country. We're built to worship something. And if you're worshiping something other than God, atheists, if you're worshiping something other than God, what it quickly turns into is an obsession with something you shouldn't be obsessed with. For a lot of the pornographized, for a lot of the victims, I don't want to call them victims, but many of you who have been brainwashed by the fake news throughout your lifetime, the idea is to get you obsessed with a particular brand so that you buy more stuff, and that's where the fake news draws its revenue from. And they can't get you obsessed with something. Again, referencing C.S. Lewis, the author of the Chronicles of Narnia, as he wrote in a book called Mere Christianity, the fake news, it's a lot more difficult for them to get you obsessed with something silly so that they can extract money from you in the form of the money you pay the providers of a service that advertise on the fake news. It's a lot more difficult for them to effectively propagandize you to buy a product if you're in your right mind. And so the fake news scares you out of your mind and not miseducates you, but propagandizes you, spreads lies, deceits, and stirs the pot of American angst, of American turmoil, creates a chaos in an attempt to scare you, to fearmonger, so that you will be as miserable as possible, because if you are not miserable, if you're contented, if you love your work, if you love your God, if you love your country, as all successful Americans during all successful periods of America's history have loved God and country, loved their families, were in a good relationship with their wives, who coincidentally had time to care for their young, for your children, for their children, had time to read together, spend time together, like in the 1950s, the post-war period, when the fake news propaganda was really coming into its own as a technology. The advent of broadcast media was just starting to get its hooks into the American collective consciousness. If you're content, ladies and gentlemen, America's man's men and our great American women, whom we love, if you are contented, if your husband is paying attention to you, if your husband is attentive to your needs and yet focused on his mission from God, if you are able to attend to the needs of your children, women, if you are able to attend to the needs of your husband that he has, if husbands, if you have the time, the wherewithal, the strength, the education, the real education, not the indoctrination, but the real education, the wherewithal, the intelligence, the physical strength, the close-knit local communities, the ability to leave your own door unlocked at night because you know all your neighbors and you know they've got your back and you've got theirs. If you live in this real America, which is a real place, which we have known up until this point in our history, if you are generally contented because you are meeting your responsibilities as an American and as a human being in your community, well, the fake news has no use for you. The fake news and the Communist Party has no use for you because you just dismiss everything that they say as silly. But if you are a millennial, as I am, you have been brought up in the communist system. You have been indoctrinated. You have been told what to think since you were in government schools. You have been taught that you are a needy, helpless victim, and moreover that if you're a man, that you've been abusing women, and if you're a woman, that you're ugly, you're unattractive, and that and that everybody in the Twitter sphere is prettier than you, and that you need to perform more oral sex on your husband, and this will make him want you again. This is what all of the teenage magazines, this is what all the children's magazines are pushing these days. Teen Vogue, for instance, is pushing sex changes and oral sex. It's basically like it's a youngsters. It's a way to transition. It's a way to get girls acclimated to, all those weird whore magazines in the checkout aisle at the supermarket. They have to get acclimated somehow, and of course, communist Planned Parenthood coming into their schools, and suggesting that they ought to have a dental dam so that girls can be happy by, how do girls get happy according to Planned Parenthood? Well, be prepared to perform oral sex. This is their plan, and this is a plan that again comes largely from the weird stew of communist homosexual propaganda. Remember, homosexuality was part of the communist platform. It's why the communists want, again, because they want to destroy that nuclear family, that's solid as a rock nuclear family. They want you to be at your wit's end, so you can't think about anything else. Because when you do start to think about the things that they're trying to push, it just doesn't add up. It's total chaos. It's total chaos, and I want to explain why it's total chaos. But this episode is getting to be about 3/4 of an hour, so I want to leave that there for now. But there's just so much to unravel, and I'm so glad that you're helping me to deprogram you from the years of communist programming, which, if you live in the United States, you have been absorbing, since from all ends, from your communist indoctrinated, again, unionized. That's key. Unionized public government school teachers. Your unionized, your news, and now the 10 o'clock news. These authoritative sounding voices, which are putting on a show, again, to frighten you to your wit's end night after night. It actually is what the boomers got, and of course we get this today from the likes of BuzzFeed, the next gen Vice, and the next generation of all this. So anyway, it's my pleasure and duty as a truly educated American who has been brought up in this cesspool of communism, but for whatever reason, God has sought to open my mind to the truths of our history. And I don't know if it was because I went to a religious school to a certain grade, and then I was let loose in the jungle of the communist Linfield public school system. It's still a communist Linfield in the commune wealth of leftist communist Taxachusetts. So anyway, I'm so and by the way, it is my privilege, and I thank you for having an interest in the truth. I thank you for seeking the light, as I have been doing my whole life, rejecting the communist myths coming at me and all of my friends from all ends, from the communist unionized school teachers, from the communist unionized film industry, from the communist unionized broadcast industry. Again, all these folks tried, they pretty much blacklisted me from the fake news when I tried to tell the truth. One of them ended up being a convicted felon who's actually getting out of the pen very soon, and not too far from just north of the hub of the universe. So we're going to choose our words. We're not. I think he may. He gave a very convincing plea to the judge. Made a very convincing plea to the judge that he realized that he was disturbed. And this fake news anchor, by the way, whom I used to work for, I noticed, I used to kind of chide him a bit because he had this obsession with covering stories about pornography. And of course, little did I know, the whole fake news is really pornographic in a strange way. But we'll get there together as you continue to just state of California mandatory warning, repeated exposure to America's mansman.com episodes will if you're a man, make you more masculine, and if you are a female, it may get you hot and bothered, and make you feel safe and comfortable and warm, and your IQ is sure to go up, so California will not be able to brainwash you. This is what the Surgeon General the Board of Health in California is telling me. I have to warn you, if you're this repeated exposure to americasmansman.com will make men more masculine and women more feminine. So if you can feel your testosterone and estrogen just kind of bursting, if you feel alive again, that's why that's happening. And if you want to be a loser, and if you want to pursue a life of fake news brainwashing, then this will interfere with your regimen of fake news programming. The Attorney General of California forcing me to declare this health warning. If you're a man, this americasmansman.com episodes will make you more masculine. If you are a woman, you will become hotter, more attractive, and you will your voice will actually become more of a soprano. And if you're a man, this americasmansman.com episodes will cause your balls to drop if they haven't already. This is americasmansman.com. Thank you for helping me to break you out of the matrix and back into the great America that is really the seeds of greatness within your American DNA. It's my privilege and honor to serve you as America's Man's Man. Thanks for coming back, and we will see you in the next episode.